It's Monday, the 25th of July, and welcome to From the South. Colombia's government, along with the FARC rebels, have agreed to create conditions for women and the people with different sexual identities to equal access to the benefits of living in a country without conflict. This will come as part of the peace agreement between the two parties, which promises to end half a century of war in Colombia. Hundreds of thousands marched against Chile's private pension system. Chilean pensions were privatized during the Pinochet dictatorship. Marchers protested that the pensions aren't enough to live on. The monthly pensions of most Chilean retirees are far less than minimum wage. The pension system is dominated by private providers, known as AFPs. Pensions were further cut this month. Trade unions and students participated in the demonstrations, which were held in Santiago and around the country. More actions are planned for the coming months. The official opening of the Olympic Village in Rio de Janeiro proved challenging for athletes. International teams moving into the compounds were met with blocked toilets and leaky pipes. Australia's team had boycotted the village. In response, authorities set to work to ensure that accommodations will be ready by Wednesday. Mexico's Navy confiscated almost 800 kilos of cocaine last Saturday from a small boat in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of Chiapas. Navy personnel sighted a small boat with several people on board, throwing packets into the water. However, the boat's passengers had disappeared by the time Navy personnel reached the boat. They recovered 24 packets of cocaine hydrochloride floating in the water. Bernie Sanders supporters marched on Sunday and Monday ahead of the opening of the Democratic National Convention, chanting, "We are the 99%. Protesters say that they are determined to have Sanders be named as the convention's nomination for president. Supporters said they may go as far as to withdraw from the Democratic Party if Sanders is not nominated. According to German authorities, a Syrian migrant set off an explosive device near an open-air music festival that killed himself and wounded a dozen others. Reports are that the 27-year-old had spent time in a psychiatric facility. But authorities have not ruled out an Islamist motive for the attack on Sunday night in the city of Anshbach. In Turkey, 7 rebel soldiers suspected of taking part in an attempted coup against Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan's government on July 15 were captured near Marmaris on Monday. More than 240 people were killed and 2,000 injured in violence surrounding the coup attempt. Syrians may be breathing a sigh of relief as humanitarian aid arrives in Damascus. teleSur's Hazem Abdullah explains.
In cooperation between the Syrian Red Cross and the International Committee of the Red Cross, a new humanitarian convoy arrived to Al Mu'addamiyya in the west side of Damascus countryside. These convoys, as you can see now behind me, contained about 8,000 of humanitarian aid buckets, contain milk for children, biscuits, foods and medical assistance.
This convoy of humanitarian aid that we see today includes 26 trucks loaded with 8,000 food baskets. They contain medical and relief supplies for patients with chronic diseases, as well as infant formula, biscuit fortified with vitamin, peanut butter, and bags of flour.
However, due to the 5-year crisis in Syria and in order to alleviate the suffering of some affected areas, the Syrian government has facilitated the movement of the relief convoys, which has now become a monthly occurrence in the affected areas.
The aid trucks are delivered on a regular basis, assisted by the Syrian Red Crescent. We thank the officials in Damascus province to facilitate the entry of such assistance, and I would emphasize that the aid delivery has become consistent, appearing every 2 months.
In spite of continued humanitarian efforts, the Syrian crisis has led to a lot of suffering and a shortage of relief materials needed by citizens. This is present particularly in areas which are still under the occupation of extremists, who have been known to use innocent civilians as human shields. Hazem Abdullah, teleSur's, Syria.
Clashes took place between pro-government forces and rebel factions in the Ley Ramon area of Aleppo city in Syria on Monday. The fighting was accompanied by airstrikes, destroying homes and buildings. Warplanes also carried out several raids on areas in the Bani Zaid neighborhood and Handrat camp, north of Aleppo, in the early hours of Sunday, while several shells launched by rebel forces attacked regime-controlled areas within the city itself. Israel has started excavations for the construction of 770 new illegal Jewish settlements in East Jerusalem. a direct contravention of international law. More on the story with teleSur's Noor Harazin.
Israel's municipality of occupied Jerusalem presented plans for the construction of 770 new illegal Jewish settlement housing units in the occupied West Bank, the Hebrew news site Walla reported Sunday. The new settlements will be constructed between the illegal Gilo settlement and the Palestinian town of Beit Jala. According to Walla, Israel will consider the new units to be part of the district of the East Jerusalem. Palestinian officials say excavation and preparation for construction have already begun. Previously, the Israeli government approved the building of 1,200 settlements in the same area. Spokesman of the Palestinian Authority, Youssef al-Mahmoud, denounced what he called Israeli arrogance and insistence on building illegal settlements on confiscated Palestinian lands.
The deadlock in the peace process, Israel's settlement expansion, and Judaism were the main reasons behind the eruption of the Third Intifada by Palestinian youths in Jerusalem. Israel should be aware that the more it proceeds with these measures, the more violent the reaction of the Palestinian people will be. Israel should also know that it is completely responsible for igniting the conflict with the Palestinians by enforcing its blockade, closure, and settlement policies.
The head of the municipality's local planning and construction committee, Mir Turkman, has confirmed that settlement construction in occupied Jerusalem and the West Bank will continue, with disregard to international condemnation of the Israeli measure. The international community opposes the establishment of Israeli settlements in the occupied Palestinian territories and considers it legal under international law. Noor Harazin, teleSur's TV, Gaza.
For the first time in the country's history, Ghana will send a swimmer to compete at the Olympic Games. 16-year-old Abeku Jackson and 14-year-old Kaya Forson will become the African nation's first Olympic swimmers. Neither Jackson nor Forson met the Olympics qualifying time, but both got their ticket on the universality system, which allows a country's two fastest swimmers to compete regardless. More on these and other stories on our website telesurtv.net/English.